People are running, screaming, as a gelatinous substance falls from the sky, splattering onto the ground with a sickening plop. It's a chaos of fear and confusion, with parents grabbing their children, trying to shield them from the unknown terror descending upon them. The substance, later to be known as the Oakville Blobs, seems to be everywhere, its translucent, jelly-like appearance making it almost surreal. As the townsfolk scramble to find shelter, the blobs continue to fall, their source and purpose unknown, leaving only one haunting question: what could be causing this bizarre and terrifying phenomenon? But to understand how we got here, we need to go back to a time when life in Oakville was ordinary and the sky was just a sky. Before the fateful day of the Blobs, life in Oakville, Washington, was like any other small town in America. People woke up early, went to work, and spent their evenings with family and friends. The town had a strong sense of community, with local events and festivals that brought everyone together. It was a place where children could play safely in the streets, and neighbors knew each other's names. The sky was a brilliant blue, with no signs of the terror that was to come. Residents like Beverly Roberts, a local shopkeeper, and her family lived simple, quiet lives, unaware of the horror that would soon descend upon them. As the days passed, a sense of normalcy prevailed, with no inkling of the bizarre events that would shatter the peace. But no one was prepared for what came next. It was the year 1994, a time of relative peace and prosperity in America. The Cold War had ended and the economy was booming. In the world of science, breakthroughs in technology and medicine were being made at an unprecedented rate. However, amidst this progress, a series of unexplained phenomena were being reported across the globe, from strange lights in the sky to bizarre creatures seen in remote areas. The incident in Oakville, Washington, would soon join the list of these inexplicable events, leaving scientists and the public alike to wonder if there was a connection between them. On August 7, 1994, the first reports of the gelatinous substance began to emerge, with multiple eyewitnesses describing the blobs as like nothing they had ever seen before. As the news spread, the town of Oakville would become the focal point of a mystery that would baffle experts for years to come. The answer, when it finally came, was worse than anyone imagined. The first sign of something amiss came on the morning of August 7, 1994, when a local farmer named Jack Taylor reported finding a strange, gelatinous substance on his land. Initially, he thought it might be some kind of prank or a weird animal byproduct, but as the day went on, more reports started coming in from other residents. They described finding the same substance on their properties, in their gardens, and even on their cars. The local authorities were notified, but they were skeptical at first, thinking it might be some kind of hoax or a minor incident. However, as the number of reports grew, it became clear that something unusual was happening. The substance seemed to be everywhere, and no one knew what it was or where it was coming from. As the town's residents began to worry, the local government started to take notice, but their response would be too little, too late. The situation was about to take a dark turn, and the consequences would be severe. As the day went on, the reports of the gelatinous substance continued to pour in, with more and more residents finding it on their properties, in their homes, and even on their bodies. The substance seemed to be spreading rapidly, and no one knew how to stop it. The local authorities, now fully engaged, started to take samples and send them to labs for analysis, but the results were inconclusive. The substance seemed to be unlike anything anyone had seen before, with no matches in any database. As the sun began to set, the town of Oakville was in a state of panic, with people locking themselves indoors, afraid of what might happen next. The situation was escalating, and the town's residents were running out of time. The worst was yet to come, and it would be more terrifying than anyone could have imagined. And then the records simply stopped. The next day, August 8, 1994, brought a new wave of terror as the gelatinous substance started falling from the sky again. This time it was more intense, with larger quantities of the substance covering the town. The residents, now fully aware of the danger, were in a state of panic, with some trying to flee, while others were trapped in their homes. The local authorities, overwhelmed by the crisis, were struggling to keep up, with emergency services stretched to the limit. As the situation continued to deteriorate, a new player entered the scene, a team of scientists from a nearby university who claimed to have some knowledge about the substance. They were led by Dr. Maria Rodriguez, a renowned expert in microbiology who would soon become the face of the investigation. But as she delved deeper into the mystery, she began to realize that something didn't add up. As Dr. Rodriguez and her team studied the substance, they made a shocking discovery. The gelatinous blobs were not a natural phenomenon, but rather a man-made substance created in a laboratory. The implications were staggering, and the team was faced with a new question: who could have created such a substance and why? The investigation took a dramatic turn as the focus shifted from a natural disaster to a potential crime scene. The authorities, now working with Dr. Rodriguez and her team, started to look for suspects, and the list of possibilities was long. But as they dug deeper, they realized that the truth was more complex and sinister than they had ever imagined. Everything pointed to a government experiment gone wrong, but then, a surprising revelation changed everything. As the investigation continued, the team discovered that the gelatinous substance was not just any man-made material, but a highly advanced and classified substance known as Erebus. It was created by a secret government agency as part of a covert experiment aimed at developing a new form of biological warfare. The substance was designed to be highly contagious and adaptable, with the ability to mutate and spread rapidly. But something had gone terribly wrong, and the substance had escaped the laboratory, spreading to the town of Oakville. The team was faced with a daunting task to contain the substance and prevent further damage, but the more they learned, the more they realized that the truth was far more sinister than they had ever imagined. The story of the Oakville Blobs was not just a simple case of a lab accident, but a complex web of deceit and corruption that went all the way to the top. As the investigation continued, the team met with the residents of Oakville who had been affected by the gelatinous substance. They heard stories of families torn apart, of children traumatized, and of lives forever changed. One of the most heartbreaking stories was that of the Taylor family, who had lost their young daughter Emma to the substance. Emma had been playing outside when the substance fell from the sky, and she had been exposed to it. Despite the efforts of the medical team, she had succumbed to the substance's effects, leaving her family devastated. The team was deeply moved by the stories they heard, and they were determined to find justice for the victims and their families. As they delved deeper into the case, they realized that the human cost of the Oakville Blobs was far greater than they had ever imagined. As the investigation continued, the team discovered that the government had been aware of the substance's existence and had been covering it up. They had been working to contain the substance, but their efforts had been in vain. The government had also been trying to silence the residents of Oakville who had been affected by the substance by offering them hush money and threatening them with legal action if they spoke out. The team was shocked by the government's actions, and they realized that the Oakville Blobs were just the tip of the iceberg. There were more secrets, more cover-ups, and more lies that needed to be exposed. The team was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost, and to bring justice to the victims and their families. But as they dug deeper, they realized that the government was not the only one involved in the cover-up. The team, led by Dr. Rodriguez, continued to investigate the Oakville Blobs, following every lead, every clue, and every tip. They interviewed residents, scientists, and government officials, trying to piece together the puzzle of the substance's origin and purpose. They analyzed samples, reviewed documents, and conducted experiments, trying to understand the substance's properties and behavior. As they dug deeper, they uncovered a web of deceit and corruption that went all the way to the top. They discovered that the substance had been created by a secret government agency as part of a covert experiment aimed at developing a new form of biological warfare. The team was shocked by the discovery, and they realized that the Oakville Blobs were just the tip of the iceberg. There were more secrets, more cover-ups, and more lies that needed to be exposed. The government, trying to contain the situation, offered an official explanation for the Oakville Blobs. They claimed that the substance was a natural phenomenon, a rare type of meteorological event that had been caused by a combination of atmospheric conditions. They stated that the substance was harmless and that it would eventually dissipate on its own. But the team, led by Dr. Rodriguez, knew that this explanation was false. They had seen the evidence, they had analyzed the samples, and they had talked to the residents. They knew that the substance was man-made and that it had been created by a secret government agency. The team was determined to expose the truth and to bring justice to the victims and their families. But the government was not willing to give up, and they would stop at nothing to keep the truth hidden. After months of investigation, the team, led by Dr. Rodriguez, had finally uncovered the closest truth to the Oakville Blobs. They had discovered that the substance was indeed man-made, created by a secret government agency as part of a covert experiment aimed at developing a new form of biological warfare. The substance had been designed to be highly contagious and adaptable, with the ability to mutate and spread rapidly. But something had gone terribly wrong, and the substance had escaped the laboratory, spreading to the town of Oakville. The team had also discovered that the government had been aware of the substance's existence and had been covering it up, trying to silence the residents of Oakville who had been affected by the substance. The team was determined to expose the truth and to bring justice to the victims and their families. They had finally uncovered the most credible explanation for the Oakville Blobs, and they were ready to share it with the world. The most disturbing fact about the Oakville Blobs was that the government had known about the substance's existence and had been covering it up, even after it had spread to the town of Oakville. They had been aware of the substance's highly contagious and adaptable nature and had done nothing to stop it. The government had prioritized their own interests over the lives of the residents of Oakville and had tried to silence them by offering them hush money and threatening them with legal action if they spoke out. The team, led by Dr. Rodriguez, was shocked by the discovery, and they realized that the Oakville Blobs were just the tip of the iceberg. There were more secrets, more cover-ups, and more lies that needed to be exposed. The team was determined to bring justice to the victims and their families, and to make sure that such a tragedy would never happen again. The Oakville Blobs, a mysterious and terrifying phenomenon, had left a lasting impact on the town of Oakville and on the world. The incident had raised questions about government secrecy, scientific ethics, and the human cost of progress. The team, led by Dr. Rodriguez, had uncovered the truth and had brought justice to the victims and their families. But the legacy of the Oakville Blobs would live on as a reminder of the dangers of unchecked power and the importance of transparency and accountability. If this kept you up at night, subscribe. We post dark history every week.